I'm back with my friend and community manager here, Sydney Bridger, a regular on the Business Immigration Benchmark. And today we're continuing a conversation talking about pain points of our global mobility friends in the industry. Sydney has the pleasure of having lots of conversation with our listeners, with global mobility leaders, and we're sharing what we learned. We're anonymizing stories here. And Sydney's going to walk us through some scenarios and we'll walk through what are some proposed solutions to these really difficult challenges. So, Cindy, can you kind of introduce this week's pain point that we're diving into?
Yeah, most definitely. And Laura, thanks again for having me back. I always love being here. It's such a pleasure. But the pain points we want to tackle today are efficiency. So, how do we streamline immigration processes? Improving case management and ensuring quick turnaround times are extremely important. I think all of these topics really go hand in hand with immigration and global mobility professionals, right? So, I'd love to kind of jump into the scenarios to present some real world conversations I've had over the past few weeks. An immigration specialist is struggling with inefficient PERM recruitment processes. Specifically, their current process is using outdated recruitment that requires a lot of the immigration specialist capacity, like requiring the immigration specialist to contact individual applicants via letter. The industry is a machinery and equipment manufacturer. The immigration professionals' years of experience is 5. The internal team size is only 1. The US foreign national employee population is 200. It's a hybrid work situation, and the team's 2024 pain points is workload management and change management. So, Laura, what best practices do you recommend for this company's PERM program to improve their PERM program's efficiency?
So, the first is that the perm recruitment generally is outdated, that I don't know any employer company that is actively or wanting to, on their own accord, place advertisements in a Sunday newspaper. So that's the first thing. So outdated kind of applies to the whole process. Nonetheless, this is what the PERM process requires according to the Department of Labor. So unfortunately, the system is quite outdated. That being said, there could be some efficiencies or updates into the way the company is selecting alternative recruitment processes, how it is receiving resumes. So I know in light of recent Department of Justice lawsuits against some tech companies, some programs are adopting new methods of receiving applications. And that is a recommendation I have for my clients too. In the past, I've been practicing 11 years. In the past, often we were recommending clients to ask or request resumes via mail. That's not a best practice anymore because of these recent lawsuits. That the recent lawsuits suggest, to the best of the company's ability, the perm recruitment should reflect the normal course of recruitment. Now, of course, it's kind of a conflict here because the Department of Labor requires companies to do these antiquated postings like in a Sunday newspaper. So on one hand, you have a lawsuit coming from the DOJ saying we need companies to recruit in the normal course, but the letter of the regulations under the Department of Labor says post in Sunday newspapers. So of course, those things aren't sort of hand in hand. They aren't consistent. So relying on your counsel to support you, partner with you to make these recommendations. So broadly speaking, you want to reflect your perm recruitment as closely as possible to your normal recruitment. Of course, it's going to look different, again, like I said, because of those Department of Labor rules. But one way is to shift receiving resumes online. So if your company already does a website posting, like on your normal website, you have a careers page, that would be a good faith first step to opening your perm recruitment through those channels. Some feedback here is that it's going to garner more resumes. That is a potential outcome of moving your receipt of resumes online and especially moving it to the hiring careers page. The other challenge here that you might have, again, when you're updating your recruitment or your application system to an online is your recruiters who normally handle recruitment may not be trained in perm. So is it more efficient to move it online? Well, it is more compliant. So that's sort of the first step. And that the second step would be working closely with your employment counsel to set up trainings for your recruiters. Now, there is efficiency here because if you are now having recruiters support resume review for perm recruitment, you've now managed to offboard or offload your perm review of resumes. So there is an efficiency there, but of course you want to make sure it's done right, which is why it's key to have counsel come in and train and maybe even have one or at most like a backup recruiters to help support the resume review. So you've kind of limited, maybe you have a team of 10 recruiters and you're having like one person really specialize and you train a backup so that you sort of have like a way to kind of control the training. Or maybe you do train everybody. But that's all to say that updating some of these recruitment pieces will allow for some efficiencies. Of course, it could open the door to more challenges, like I said, more applicants. So definitely work with your counsel before you innovate and improve, open new recruitment avenues, those types of things. Of course, you'll want to make sure it's the right decision for your program. So that's sort of the first thing. The applicant tracking tools that a lot of recruiters use could be a nice efficiency for perm recruitment review or perm resume review, rather. So this is something to really think about if you're able to partner with the recruiting department, how that can help you. So there's some room for efficiency. It, of course, comes with a balance of cost benefit. Is this going to create more problems for your perm program? But you want to be thinking about that compliance overall piece of if your perm recruitment states to send resumes via mail, that's definitely something you're going to want to look at in light of these recent lawsuits. So kind of a can of worms there, Sid. So I don't know that it's a really straightforward slam dunk. Here's the way to be more efficient. But like you said, it kind of goes hand in hand with compliance and a lot of these pain points in the conversations that you're having. You know, the efficiency challenge is just like another look or another face of the challenges we talked about a couple weeks ago, which were the policy and consistency. Because when policies are inconsistent or outdated, inevitably it's going to make your program a little bit less efficient because you're going to be having the same or very similar conversations over and over again, or you're going to be encountering issues in the same or similar ways over and over again. So, you know, if it sounds like we're having the same conversation about pain points, we're just calling it efficiency. They're kind of the same, right? In a certain sense, just another perspective of the same issues.
Yeah. And Laura, when you were speaking, recruitment in general just brought back so many memories for me while working in house. It was something I dreaded. I hated recruitment just because it got a little tedious and the number of applicants we saw were ever increasing. So, really working with your counsel to be sure that you're doing the right method or if there's anything you can tweak. And another thing you said too is making sure your recruiters are trained. So, lots of ways to kind of increase efficiency with the recruitment process, though don't get me wrong, recruitment was the bane of my existence during the perm process, but lots of little pieces you can kind of pick up to kind of make your process better.
Yeah, and that's why working with counsel to sort of go through some of the top pain points. So if it's, you know, inefficiency in resume review, how they would recommend working with recruiters or any internal tools the company already has, like you likely have an applicant tracking tool within your recruiting department if you have a recruiting department. So trying to leverage some of those tools and apply them to the perm program. But that might not be the right fit for your program. Like if you are a program that's struggling with a high number of applicants, you want to be really careful in how you're engaging in perm. And of course, exploring other options like the EB1 national interest waiver, which may require more, you know, attorney review and setting up a strategy of if your company can even sponsor these types of classifications and just avoiding perm and a labor market test altogether, or going the batch route and really looking to have a strategy for each of these green card processes because they do take a tremendous amount of resources, both capital and time intensive. So you want to make sure, despite the length of the process, that it really makes sense for your program to embark on the process and that you have a strategy going in rather than just the one-off ad hoc issues and it can be chaotic. So something to think about. And yeah, and perm's just not easy. So it's hard to be like, yeah, it'll make it all better. Like it's not. There's not one solution. If it was, everybody would be doing it already.
Right,
So if you're
right.
having,
So give us that solution. Let us know.
yeah, that's all to say that if it's just validating, if you're having problems with perm, I know that this comes up in a lot of the roundtables, like perm processing times, number of applicants, worry about compliance. Any other issues that you hear about with perm? Only to validate our listeners' feelings, really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everyone's feelings, let's be real, regarding perm, even like
Yeah.
prevailing wage
Yeah.
determinations and, those coming back unfavorable, favorable, and then having to wait another however amount of time to get another result. Have you seen that with PWDs with your clients, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, the inconsistency with the Department of Labor is actually kind of funny. I have a client that like has really standardized job descriptions and job titles and will still get a inconsistent code sometimes from the Department of Labor, and so that can be quite frustrating. Fortunately, this client doesn't challenge wage issues, but it is kind of funny like, well, with this position that we've submitted multiple times could be this code or it could be this code, and it's kind of funny how that can end up differently despite showing the government the same information, which kind of just confirms what we always say, that there's just an immense amount of discretion that the government has, even the Department of Labor, that it's hard to just guarantee a level or it's hard to guarantee a specific code. Even if you're doing this exact same thing over and over again, the government
Right.
just has a lot of discretion.
An immigration specialist at a biopharma is responsible for overseeing the company's immigration sponsorships. The immigration specialist is responsible for the day to day operations of the program, which requires a tremendous amount of hours to complete all requests. While the immigration specialist manager is technically also part of the immigration team, the supervisor also oversees other functions, so does not spend too much time supporting the day to day operations. Currently, the immigration specialist is tasked with reviewing a monthly report to approve and confirm extension authorizations prompted by their immigration counsel. The industry is biotech. His or her years of experience is 5. The internal team size is 2. And the number of foreign national employees is 500. What best practices can you recommend for this immigration specialist to make the extension process more efficient and free up some capacity?
Yeah, so this sounds like the pain point is sort of twofold, that this immigration specialist is stretched really thin and figuring out a way to partner with their immigration counsel to alleviate sort of the maybe manual extension process that they might be going through. Like maybe it's like even if it is a report and the immigration counsel is saying, can you please approve authorizing moving forward with extensions, that would still require a lot of back and forth for the immigration specialist. Maybe that immigration specialist has to reach out to those managers or, the foreign national employees HR to confirm they're still employed. Like it could be quite manual despite using a report and the council trying to do things in batch. The way I've solved this in the past is partnering with the client to set up a direct HRIS feed to their internal HR portal and agreeing with the company client that as long as the HRIS feed is updated, confirming that the foreign national employee remains employed and in good standing, which can flow into our system or presumably any other immigration council system, that we're authorized to proceed with the extension so that the process of extending is automated through the data feed. So we want to, of course, make sure the company is sponsoring foreign nationals who maintain their employment, and that HRIS feed would flag if someone's on any kind of HR performance improvement plan or any kind of employment action scenario, that there would be some sort of warning. And then those individual cases would require some follow-up of hold the extension till the warning is resolved or whatever it might be. We may not even have that much information about like what the flag is, but that the HRIS feed would flag like, employee action issue, don't proceed. But otherwise, the majority, 99% of other cases would just flow through. We would also be receiving confirmation of, location, salary, job title, job description through that HRIS to alleviate having to collect that data, again, probably pretty manually from the immigration specialist. So that is a great solution that requires technology. and enhances efficiency. Of course, you have to use your IT team to set up that HRIS feed, which I'm finding in some clients, especially as I'm onboarding new clients, that might fall lower in the priority. So when a client's onboarding, the goal is to get them to an HRIS feed into our immigration system to alleviate some of this manual data entry for our immigration teams at the client sites. But it might not be right away because you have to put it on the IT's to-do list, and priorities are shifting, and another pain point is cost. And so depending on how different organizations operate, leveraging their internal team might be a cost to the department. Depends on how the company works. We of course try to do our best to create these like bridges that we have already built out, but inevitably there requires some sort of partnership with the company side that has to have some sort of IT team to sort of verify and implement whatever sort of bridge needs to be connected to the programs. But an HRIS feed can really solve some of this like manual authorization. So that would be my recommendation. If that's not available, I think there are other ways around it, if possible, giving immigration counsel access to, or some sort of limited access to a report within HRIS. So it could be kind of like I'll call it a manual, like report into the immigration counsel. And then immigration counsel can do like a VLOOKUP to see like, is this, foreign national employee still employed with the company? Like something like that would shift where that like manual review happens. And that can happen within the immigration counsel's team, like a paralegal, a legal assistant could be doing that sort of review or data entry and then flagging to the immigration specialist, like, hey, I saw this red flag or this doesn't make sense. And to, again, take on 99% of the work of verifying those employment dates. So just looking for reporting or data feeds to solve some of this extension, because a program this size with one person at the helm, managing individually, or even, like I said, taking on the data entry of rows through an Excel sheet could be quite lengthy. Like that could be, half a day's work. So shifting that over to counsel in some sort of way, ideally automated, would be a game changer for that kind of monthly workload.
Most definitely. And I can't resonate with that more. The amount of time I spent reaching out to HR teams in different departments, different managers to confirm they're in good standing, they're still eligible to renew their visa. It takes so much time. And having that clean report with counsel flagging, okay, these are the extensions coming up, so you can better prioritize your day and what your capacity looks like. That leads to, the pain point of efficiency, just making sure that, you have your ducks lined up in a row. And then at the end of the day, you just feel better and more confident in your day-to-day job.
When you're adjusting it at that individual level for, any kind of sizable program, that's intense time commitment. I would wonder if folks in this scenario feel like, when you have those individual, it's having a performance discussion for the extension. I don't know how I feel about that in a sense, because the way performance discussions can happen, or counseling out, or whatever the terminology is, like can be quite lengthy, and to sort of hold up an extension, I feel like that's a really tough place for immigration to come in. I would want those separate. Like, unless there is like the foreign national has resigned. So yeah, do not proceed with an extension. I would recommend the client like proceed with the extension and then handle the HR conversations, counseling out like separately, but don't hinge it on the immigration timing, because I just feel like those are two separate issues. Like, of course, you want to be talking with employment counsel when you're handling any kind of potential termination action or performance evaluation that could lead in a termination action. That shouldn't rely on like, well, should we file this extension? You know what I mean? Like, I think those
Right.
are two separate things. Not to mention, you probably have that foreign national following up with you, like, I need to travel, I need a driver's license, we're filing the extension. And and that conversation is separate from performance, right? So that would be my take on it. I haven't encountered this a lot. Ideally, again, that the renewals are kind of automated, but for like, of course, if the foreign national has resigned and there's that date, like, of course, do not, extend. Or I've had some cases recently where someone's up for extension, but the company's moved them abroad for an assignment abroad. So it's like, okay, well, then don't do the extension. They're not
Right.
based in the US right now. So that comes up in sort of these auto feeds where it's like flagged, like not in the US. Okay. Well, glad we got notified. Thank you. and yeah, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I would love to hear if anyone's encountered situations like that with like, holding up or navigating the conversation of H-1B extension or some sort of visa extension and a performance challenge or performance issue at the same time and how their company has handled it. That would be a sticky one. But anyway, be curious if someone's willing to share what that is. But overall, like creating some sort of data feed to eliminate any kind of manual process would be key. I know often people say, could you be more efficient, throw a tech solution at it? That's not always going to work. This is one where a data feed would solve this, but again, does require you bringing in resources, having access to those resources, and that those IT resources are prioritized for your organization, which from time to time is just not, the stars are not all going to align for that.
No, definitely not. And if they did, that would be great.
Yeah, buy your lotto ticket as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
well, we know there are certain other challenges and other pain points that continue to come up. So if you haven't already connected with Sydney or I on LinkedIn, and specifically, Sydney, can you tell us where they can get linked into your community where these conversations are happening? Should they want to have more conversations with you?
Yes, please reach out. I would love to talk to you. You can send me a direct message on LinkedIn. We also have our Immigration Benchmarking Collective group on LinkedIn. So if you'd like to join and be a part of our benchmarking surveys, just let me know. I'm happy to add you as well. But yeah, I'm always happy to chat. And trust me, I've been in these situations and these scenarios where I just wanted to throw my laptop out the window. I was like, this is not happening. It happens. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And part of my role as community manager is to really bring folks together. So I look forward to hearing from you. And yeah, thanks so much for having me, Laura.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back. Keep collecting your data points to share with us here on the Business Immigration Benchmark. Catch y'all next week.